Oh, hey, it says I'm live. Can you see it, Tim, on the second link that I sent? Yeah. All right. All right, here we go. So, had some technical difficulties there with this first broadcast ever. So, hopefully, everyone that was in the other, channel was able to find us over here. So, anyways, my name's Eric. I'm with PowerApps.rocks. And today we are going to try our hand at some live coding. We are going to build a quick Power App that uses custom connectors in order to call a USGS earthquake API and then pull back those results and display them to our users. What's cool about this app is it is going to use the sensors, the latitude and longitude sensors in your phone to set a proximity to search from. So when we're done with this app, in about 40 minutes, you'll be able to hit a button on your phone and see what little earthquakes happened within 300 kilometers of you. So should be pretty interesting. Are we good to go, YO Tim? Sweet, we're live. My good friend YO Tim from the PowerApps forums is helping me out today. He's moderating the chat room, taking your questions, and he'll be passing them my way. And let's get started. Oh, real quick before we get started, this is a 101 to 201 level class, so it assumes that you've done some kind of power apping before, and you're somewhat comfortable with terminology at the more advanced level. Don't be scared though, I'll break it down super simple. All right, so here we go. The agenda for today is going to be, let me pop that up for us. We are going to create a simple PowerApps UI. We're going to test an API using Postman. We're going to create a PowerApps custom connector. We are going to connect that connector to PowerApps. And then we're going to visualize the API response in a gallery control. Okay, so pretty advanced stuff, but watch how easy it is. I mean, this type of thing surprises me. It was so simple to create this that I thought it was important to share with everyone. So here we go. If you'll go ahead and go to create.powerapps.com, and you can follow me there. We're going to click on a simple phone layout to begin with. And so right down here where it says phone layout, takes a couple seconds to load. PowerApps doing a lot of magic here in the background for us. So the way I like to start my apps, especially quick ones like this, is to frame up the UI real quick. So we're going to stick a header, a footer, and a button on the screen first. So we'll go Insert Label, and we'll just kind of pull this around the screen to where a header might be found, something like this. I'm going to change the text property real quick to Earthquake Checker. That sounds fun. And we're going to make it big and bold, so we'll change the size property to something like 32. We'll go ahead and change the align property of this label to center. And let's change the font weight real quick to bold because it is a header, so we draw attention to it. And then let's just change the fill real quick to light gray. All right, light gray, something like that. One of the nice things about PowerApps is you can Control-C, Control-V, and copy this control over to something that looks like a footer. And then we'll just delete the text off of that label. You're starting to see what's framing up here. The next thing, if you'll insert a button control, we'll drag this down into place. Oops. And what's kind of nice is you get these, you get these snap to indicators on your screen. So when I kind of move that right to the middle of my footer and to the middle of the screen. You can see those snap to lines. Going to change the text property real quick to what's shaken, because this is a Check for Earthquakes app. All right, and then just something real quick. Let's change the fill to a light blue. Okay, and again, these are just simple UI things. Maybe we'll set the color to black as well for the text. Okay, so you can kind of see the UI starting to frame up here. The last UI element we need is a gallery. And this is what we're going to use to display the API response. All right, so we'll select a blank vertical gallery. Kind of put that in between the header and footer there. And again, PowerApps gives us these nice snap to indicators there. And the other habit you should definitely get into is naming your controls over here in the tree view. So we're going to quickly name this, checker screen. We're going to quickly name our gallery results gallery. And you can come up with your own naming conventions, but it's very important that you do name your controls something that is standardized across your company, or at least across your apps. So this will be, checker button, what have you. And then finally, these last two controls, footer 1 and header 1. Okay. So that'll be the basic frame for our Power App. If you've ever worked with Power Apps before, everything we did there was really standard, really straightforward. The last piece here is, of course, we want to save this. So let's go to File, and we're going to click Save. There we go. And we're going to save this to the cloud. We'll name it something like Earthquake Checker. Okay. Hit Save down here in the bottom right. That one can kind of hide from you a little bit. And that's literally step one. Boom. Step one of the agenda. We got the UI framed up. Okay. Any questions coming from anyone, Tim? No? Okay. Well, hopefully there's someone there watching. Okay. Yay. All right. All right. So the next piece of the pie here is we are going to use Postman to test our API. And it's important that you test your API calls before you go start building your custom connectors, because you want a known good request and response. And the way to do that, at least the easy way that I found, is to use this tool called Postman. Okay? And you can get Postman, right off of the internet there. Just, Google for it. I'm going to create a new collection real quick. As soon as you open Postman, you're going to get the option there to create a collection or a request. Let's go ahead and create a new collection. We'll call this USGS Earthquake API. Okay, Earthquake API. And we are going to go ahead and create a new request. So add request here. And we'll call this Get Earthquakes. So get is the method that this API uses. And we'll hit save. And now we get to take a trip to the API documentation. Okay, so I'm going to kind of set this up here. It's waiting for us to test. But what we need to do is you have to peruse the API docs that you are trying to build a query for. So I'm going to go to this URL. It's earthquake.usgs.gov, and then it's /FDS/NWS. I think I should just paste this to Tim and ask nicely if he'll post it in the comments for you. There we go. Thanks, Tim. So this is the API documentation that you really have to get an idea for before you start testing. You're always looking for a sample query, okay? So a query, at least a GET query, takes the form of a parameterized URL. Okay, so here is one parameter, format equals. Here is a second parameter, start time equals. And finally, end time equals. So this query right here has 3 parameters to it. And if you were to click that, it would return data, right? So what you can see here is if I look at the raw data, this is or I should say, these are the earthquakes that have happened all across the country, okay? So what's cool is we're going to be taking this raw looking data and we're going to format it in a beautiful app, okay? But again, the first thing we are doing here is defining our request, okay? So that was a sample request, but let's go look through what query parameters are available to us. So the first one there we had was format. So we're going to go with GeoJSON for the format. The second one that we're going to use is end time and start time. So remember, we're searching for earthquakes. Do we want the earthquakes last week? Do we want the earthquakes in the last 24 hours? That's what your start time and end time parameters will be for. And then finally, we want to use the latitude, longitude, and radius, right? Because we're going to use the sensor data from our phones to send the latitude and longitude. And then we will define a max radius in kilometers. So 300 kilometers around my lat and long is where we want the information from. There's one more down here that we're going to play with called order by. So we're going to order the results by magnitude, okay? So the purpose of this was, one, get familiar with your API docs and cross your fingers that your API is well documented, because I've come across some that are not well documented, and so it's hard to pull out which parameters are required and X, Y, and Z. So now that we have our API docs, let's go back to Postman and build a sample query, okay? So I'm going to kind of stick this off to the side so we can refer to it. I'm sure there's a cooler way to do that besides dragging things around, but is what it is. And here is our Postman. All right, so the first thing Postman asked for is give me the request URL. Well, we already had a nice sample up here. So let's copy this sample URL and paste it right into Postman. And look what Postman does for us. Isn't that nice? It pulled off those 3 parameters that are part of the URL, and it breaks them into these key value pairs. That'll be key in a minute. So we're going to hit send here, and what you will see is, just like we had that raw response in the browser earlier that was kind of unformatted because it was a browser, Postman gives you this nice hierarchical response of JSON, okay? And it's giving us JSON because right here in our format, we specified JSON. Some APIs can give you XML and all kinds of different things. For our PowerApps purposes, we want our responses in JSON, because, or at least I do. That's the easiest I've found to handle things. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add those other parameters that we want to have in our request. So if you'll recall, what those were was end time and start time. So I'm going to just copy these right from the docs right into Postman. So we'll go start time, end time. Okay. And the other 2 were latitude, longitude. So again, the reason I'm copying these into Postman is so I don't have any spelling errors. There's been a lot of times where I'm reading an API doc and I mistype a parameter, and then my response doesn't come back. You know, I get an error response, status 400 or something. And so this is just, it's nice to kind of have these side by side so that you don't have any, typos, okay? So start time, the last piece here is max radius in kilometers. And then finally, if you'll recall, order by right here. Now notice, these are all of the keys, but what values are we giving these keys? And so this is where well-documented APIs come into play. So here I can see that order by has a bunch of different possibilities. I want magnitude ascending, right? So the magnitude of the earthquakes in order is my response. My max radius in kilometers, let's just go 300 kilometers. Latitude and longitude, I'm just hard coding right now to get a good test. So, excuse me, I'm going to use Seattle here. And then start time and end time. Oh, look at that. We already had those. So I'm just going to simply remove those. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is hit send. And this is going to send our parameterized URL. And look at that. We have a successful response. So these are all of the earthquakes within 300 kilometers of this latitude and longitude. And they are ordered by magnitude. So if I could, well, maybe I'll just go whole screen, full screen, so you can kind of get a better view. But, you know, basically here's the first one. Somehow it's a negative 33 magnitude, 0.33. But you get some idea like the place. So this earthquake is 27 kilometers northwest of Packwood, Washington. You get a nice, if I'm not mistaken, a URL in here to get more information. We're going to be using that. And again, the data is in ascending order. So if we go to the very bottom, we could see that the biggest earthquake within 300 kilometers of me was a magnitude 2.2, a kilometer northwest of Sweet Home, Oregon. So the purpose of this was to make sure we had an accurate and working request and we get an accurate and working response. Okay? That's what Postman is used for. Testing your API before you get into building a custom connector. All right? So that is step 2 on our agenda. My good man Tim, any questions from anyone on the step 2 here, testing in Postman? No? All right. Don't be shy now, all 2 of you. Yeah, sorry about those technical difficulties earlier. That was just, you know, rookie mistake. Anyway, now we're going to build a custom connector. So we're tuning in for the cool stuff now. Custom connectors are built at a different URL. So you went to create.powerapps.com to build your app. You will go to web.powerapps.com to build your custom connector. All right? So go to web.powerapps.com and we'll let it load up here. I think this is going to be more straightforward than you know, than you're ready for. We'll go right here to custom connectors. And we're going to build or create, what is it? Create from scratch up here, create new. Browser's running a little slow at the moment. There it is. So we're going to click create custom connector and then create from blank. You can do other things in here, maybe even import that Postman collection that we just tinkered with, but I haven't had the best success with that in the past, so I should try it again. But we're going to create from scratch here, create from blank. We know we have a working request and response. Let's just build it here as a custom connector. So we're going to call this Earthquake API. Call it whatever you'd like. And the first screen here is where we dictate whether we're hitting cloud data or on-prem data, whether we're using HTTP or HTTPS, and what our base URL is going to be. So we're obviously not connecting to any on-premise data within a corporate firewall. This is an open API. It does use HTTPS, and the way I can tell that is if I go up and look at our sample query, right there, HTTPS, so that's cool. And the host is the next thing I want to put in here. And I'm going to grab that from Postman. Now, the host is everything after HTTPS:// all the way up to the .gov. Okay, so you only want to include subdomain, domain, and TLD. Okay, so, and PowerApps will tell you if you're trying to paste something extra in there. It gives you even some hint text. So I paste that in. We're going to leave that base URL alone and just hit next to security. Now this is an open API, right? There is no authentication or anything that has to be done. If you were hitting an on-premise API, something that required Windows authentication or API keys or what have you, you could build that all out here. But this is a straightforward, simple one. So we'll go to definition. First thing we do is define an action. So our action is going to be get earthquakes, basically. So you input a little summary here, right? So we're going to say get USGS earthquakes within 300 kilometers, right? Some nice summary. The description, I'm just going to copy that right in and paste it over here. Now the operation ID is a little more unique. You want to put something in here that is going to be a hint for you when you get to PowerApps. So what I like to do is put the method up front, so get, and then something simple after that. So in this case, it'll be get earthquakes. And you will see where this pops up once we get back to our app. So in my mind, it's pretty smart to put either the word get or the word post on the front of that, depending on which verb you're using. Okay. And so that is kind of the general piece of our action. The next thing we're going to do is define our request. Remember from Postman that our request is this big, long, parameterized URL, right? So guess what we're going to do? We're going to copy that guy, and then we're going to bring that right over to, let me see if I can do this the easy way. There we go. We're going to click import from sample, and again, this is under request. We select our verb. Remember, this is a get request. And then we're going to paste in our URL. If there were any request headers, we would also put those right here. But this particular API, if you'll click right, or notice right here, under headers, there are no request headers at all. Okay? So we have no request headers. Maybe I can do this side by side to make things a little better. All right, so we're going to hit import. And watch what PowerApps does for us. Remember when Postman stripped off all of those parameters from the URL? PowerApps did that for us here in the custom connector builder. And what's cool is all of those parameters will be available to us once we get back to the app. So we'll be able to pass things like dates, times, longitude, latitude, etc. Okay? The next piece you have to do here, we've got our request defined. Now we have to define the response. So this is pretty tricky to get if you're first starting out. What you're doing here is defining the schema that is going to be returned from your request. Okay? It's literally the nested or hierarchical shape of the JSON to be returned. What's cool is, just like we imported a sample up here for our request, you guessed it, we can click here and import a sample response as well. Okay? So I'm going to click import from sample. Where do you think I'm going to get that JSON body? Postman, right? I tested this API already, or this request already. I know that this response is the structure that I want. So I'm just going to quickly Control A, Control C, paste that into the body here as a sample schema. Now there are response headers that I need to take into account. And so if you'll look down here where the response is, I'm going to click headers, and there are 21 headers in this response. That's the most I've ever seen. But to be efficient and to make sure that we don't miss anything, because I've left response headers out before and my response does not come back as intended. So we're going to copy these and we're going to paste them in here. Now there's one little cleanup that has to happen here. If you'll notice, there's an arrow icon here. Those are not, as far as I know, not allowed in the text. So you know, we got to go through here and peel out these 21 arrow icons. They're not really an icon. I'm sure they're an ASCII, you know, character or what have you. But we got to peel these out real quick. And take those out. Almost to the bottom. I'm stalling. Here we go. Trust me, this is all going to be worth it. All right. And all right, 2 more. Okay. I'm just using my arrow keys and the old backspace button. Okay. And 1 more hiding right there. Hopefully I got all those out. Okay, so we imported all of our response headers, and we imported a sample JSON body, a response schema. You hit import, and just like PowerApps peeled off those parameters from our URL and made those available to us when we initiate the request, look what it did for the response. It peeled off all of those things that were in the response so we can visualize them in our gallery. So some of these that we're going to use are things like magnitude, URL, place, right? Mag, URL, place, and there's a whole bunch of other ones that you could pull back and visualize as well, okay? So super cool. What we are going to do now is create the connector. So you're going to have to click this Create Connector icon right here, button. Right, and there's one little snafu that you'll have to take into account. Hey, guess what, Tim? Your audio just came back. I can hear you. All right, so we go to test. And here's the little snafu, okay? You have to create a connection to your connector. I know it's kind of silly to wrap your head around, but if you look right here, there are no connections yet. So when I hit connection and I hit create, here's the part that just kind of stinks. We're going to be navigated away from our connector. All right, so watch. So right now it's like, it's making that connection, it's testing it, it's saying, okay, this connector can make that connection. All right, so we have to go back a little bit here. I wish it did navigate us away. Anyone from the PowerApps team, if there's a way to stay in the connector at that point, it would be really sweet. But we have to navigate back real quick. No biggie. And we'll let this load. And the next, the final step is to, let's see, Earthquake API, is to test the custom connector. All right. So now that we have our connection, we go to the test area here. And here's where we're going to literally put in GeoJSON, StartTime, and instead of, you know, recreating the wheel here, I'm just going to paste these from my successful test in Postman. Where am I? Parameters. There we go. All right. So we know that this start time works. So I'm just going to copy that. Start time. Boom. I know the end time is just the start time plus a day. Latitude was 47. Longitude -122. 300 kilometer radius. And just so I don't do a typo, I'm going to copy that, paste it in there, and here's the big moment. Test operation. Okay? Let's see what we got. Fingers crossed. We're looking for a status 200. All right, we got it. So status 200 means the API reached its endpoint and you got a response. Here's those 21 headers. And here, just like in Postman, is our response from this API. Okay? So remember there was a -30 or 0.33 magnitude at Packwood, and there was something near Sunshine, Oregon at the end. Sweet Home, Oregon. Sorry, Sweet Home. Okay? So awesome. that checks the third thing off of our agenda. So far, we've created a quick UI, tested an API request and response in Postman, and then built a custom connector in PowerApps that will hit that API and bring us back the response we want. The last two pieces of the puzzle are to connect, how about this? Use this custom connector in our app and then visualize the response in a gallery. So we're going to come back over here to the app we just created, and we're going to go View Data Sources, and we are going to add a data source, and I'm just going to type in earthquake. And this one was one I built a little while ago. This is the one we just built. One thing I want you to know is look at that diamond over there. You hover over the diamond. Apps that use custom connectors require every one of your users to have at least a PowerApps Plan 1 license. Okay, that's important to note. If you have a custom data source or something on-prem or what have you that you want to build a custom connector for, you have to have a PowerApps Plan 1 license for all your users. You can check out the Seattle PowerAppers GitHub site for like a dissertation on licensing if you need it. We won't hit that here. So we're going to add this custom connector we just created. Now it is available in our app. And we want that custom connector to fire when we click the What's Shaken button. So we're going to go to the onSelect property of the button. And this one was kind of fun to learn. This is not intuitive all the time. We're going to use the clear collect function. And we're going to create a collection called call, I don't know, earthquake results. Okay? And now I'm just going to start typing earthquake and let IntelliSense take over. Do you remember earlier when we were creating the name of our action and I told you to name it get something? That's what you're looking at right here. This is that nice little hint text. But it gets better. The IntelliSense PowerApps team, digital high five, man. You guys made this part of building a custom connector just awesome. Look at the hint text that I get. Not only do I get the parameter, but I get the data type of that parameter. And as I build the query here for this custom connector, this this hint text just moves along. It's sweet. So we're going to open, and I'm just going to build this out real quick. Open, close, curly braces. Sorry, end that and end that. Okay, just get the syntaxy piece out of the way. All right, so the first thing is format. If you remember, our format for this API call is GeoJSON. Watch what happens when I hit the comma. Bingo. Okay, oh, well, I guess it didn't move for me on that one, but no big deal. It'll move here in a minute. There, you see that? I start typing start time. It even gives it to me in IntelliSense, so I can literally just hit tab, and it's looking for text. All right, so let's give it, let's see, the start time would be today function, and we'll just keep it simple, -1. Okay, that would be start time is yesterday. We'll go end time, again using IntelliSense so I don't do a typo. We'll just set that to today. Here's where the tricks come in. Latitude. What do you think we're going to use for latitude? Remember, we want to tap into the device sensors. And so the way you do that is with the function location dot. And we will go latitude. Typically, right after I do that, my browser asks me for permission to use its Latin long. But it didn't there, so that's interesting. I might have already granted it. Longitude is going to be very similar, right? Location dot longitude. And I'm making my way down. I see next is max radius kilometers. We're going to do a 300 kilometer radius. And then, whoops, finally, order by is going to be, if I recall, magnitude-ascending. Okay? And so we've done all that work. We're so excited about like firing off our custom connector, and we have errors. I left this in there because this is a huge gotcha when using custom connectors. The nice thing is the hover error, gives you a good indicator. So let's see what it says. Oh, sorry, I was expecting something else. But anyway, here's what has to happen. When you first add a custom connector to a Power App, you actually have to close the Power App down and reopen it so that you get the allow pop-up that says, yes, I allow this custom connector to go out to the, to the internet. PowerApps team, if you're on, it would be super sweet to have that pop-up show up when I add my data source. So when I add that Earthquake API and hit go, give me the pop-up right there to kind of get that allow function working, because this open close thing gets a lot of folks. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and then I'm going to hit close. And I purposefully left a couple errors in this API in the request. All right, so we're going to go open here, and so we'll do some debugging together as well. So here's our app, Earthquake Checker, and watch what happens upon opening. First thing it's going to say, do you allow this custom connector? Boom. That has to happen before you can use the custom connector. Okay, so we'll go allow, and all right. Excellent. We'll see what our errors are here. Invalid argument type date, expecting a text value instead. Oh, well, no problem. We know how to fix that. We've been around the block a couple times. We need to wrap the today function, which provides a date, in the text function. Do the same thing here. And why are we doing this is because look up in our hint text. It's saying that start time and end time are text data types. And it appears that today is giving a date type data type. So let's see if we can figure out what our other errors are. The way you kind of do this is troll through, hover. Oh, look at that. The function, okay, name isn't valid. Well, GeoJSON needs to be in quotation marks because it too is text. Okay, nice. Look at that. So we have no errors. We are going to collect the results of this API call. I'm super excited. Here we go. Hit the what's shaken button. We get a little movement across the screen. That means something's happening. Awesome. We go view collections and oh, sweet. Okay. Let's dig in a little. Oh, empty. I wonder what it is. Let's do some debugging. I'm going to insert a quick label. And you know what I think it is? Remember when I said that typically my browser will ask for my latitude and longitude, and it didn't? I think my browser's acting funny. So I'm going to go location.latitude. Oh, that's working. All right, let's go location.longitude. Oh, that's working. Okay. Why are we not getting any results? Let's just try one more time on this puppy. Well, that was super quick. I have a couple other ideas. But let's see here. Magnitude ascending. Let's just make sure I didn't misspell something. Like this guy. Magnitude ascending. All right, and this is, again, part of the fun, right? We get to debug together. Should I cheat? I think I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go over here and look at the app that we pre-built and just see if there's anything I missed here. Today, location. Not really anything observing. You know what I didn't have is I didn't have this wrapped in text in the other one. So just give me a moment here. Maybe it actually didn't like that, that text format. Let's try this. Okay, so we're going to come in here, hit what's shaken again, and go view our collections. Aha! Now we have this third column here, and boom, we have some earthquakes. Okay, so here we can see we have one near Morton, Washington, and cool. So we're getting some results from our API call. Okay, the last piece of the pie here is how are we going to visualize it? All right, so let's recap real quick. We whipped up a quick UI. We tested an API request and response. We built a custom connector in PowerApps. We connected that connector to our app. And now we're getting the results in a collection. The last piece of the pie, and really the last piece of our agenda here, is to visualize those results. And that's what we have our gallery for. Galleries are awesome for displaying tabular data and nested tabular data. So the first thing we got to do is set the items property of this gallery. So most people want to just set it to our collection. Well, if you'll recall, in our collection, we have nested tables. So we have to get into this second layer here, if you will. We have to get into features, okay? And eventually, we have to get into properties to actually display the earthquakes. So we're going to use our old friend first. First allows you to dig in a level, okay? And then we use dot notation. So you see that dot on the end? We're going to get into features. And we're going to go dot features. Okay, so we're digging into our collection down to the features level. Okay, and I'm just going to see, I do get another option. We'll try going one level deeper to properties. Okay, all right, the next thing we need to do is stick some labels in here. So I'm going to quickly insert a label. And galleries have a really cool property called this item. And it's something you can reference. So if I go to this item dot, look at the values that it gives me. Properties dot. And these are the pieces of the pie right here. So remember, we wanted magnitude. So let's see if we can find mag. I'll just start typing mag. There it is. Aha. These are the magnitudes of the earthquake. Okay, and actually, yeah, we'll leave that there. I'm going to just copy and paste this label. The next thing I want is the place. Remember, this is kind of the description of where the earthquake happened. All right, there we go. And let's see what other stuff we can display here. We'll go one more of type. That one was kind of interesting. So if I come over here, we do this, and instead of place, we're going to go type. All right, and bingo. We'll tighten up our template here a little bit. And actually, I want to do one more thing, okay? I want to insert a quick icon. All right. And we'll just look for something that looks like information. I believe there's an eye icon. What we're going to do here is we're going to tie the URL to this icon so that when people tap it, they go out to the USGS site for more information. Okay? And I'm certain I passed the info icon there somewhere. And instead, we're just going to put this up. All right. So we have this kind of more info icon, and on select, we're going to use our old friend launch, and we're going to launch this item dot properties dot URL. All right, we'll make that kind of big, and let's test some things out here, okay? So we've already been able to grab all earthquakes within our 300 kilometer vicinity. Let me up that a little bit from 300 kilometers to, say, 600 kilometers, just so we get a little diversity. Now, typically we would have a field in our app where the user could input their radius that they wanted to check. In fact, if there's any Seattle PowerAppers on the call here or on the broadcast here, this is your challenge for our April 20th meetup. Figure out a way to make the request dynamic. All right. So here we go. We're going to test, and within 600 kilometers, boy, I guess that's it. Okay. It's been kind of quiet. Let's up that to 1,000, shall we? Okay. There we go. Let's try this again. All right, and we're getting our responses. Bingo. Okay, tons within 1,000 kilometers. That's because we have California within 1,000 kilometers. But here's some cool stuff. All right, let's test our icon. So I am concerned about earthquakes 8 kilometers northwest of the geysers. Check this out. This should take us right to the earthquake details 8 kilometers northwest of geysers. Sweet. And I'm sure there's ways that we can pull this information into our app as well. But that's the gist of it. Some of the key things to remember is don't be scared when things don't work, right? We had a couple debugging tricks there that we tried. Of course, we would go through some efforts here to make this more beautiful and what have you. But there's one thing I do want to show you real quick. I'm going to go to File, Save. And if you've never used PowerApps before, or if you've never had the thrill of hitting the Publish button, it's really cool. So I'm going to hit Publish. And 30 seconds, 20 seconds later, if I had 500 users, they would all be able to use this app. If I had 1,000 users, they'd all be able to use this app if I had shared it with them. So what I'm going to do here is do a couple of strokes there. And what did we call this? Earthquake checker. So PowerApps has a habit of putting new apps near the bottom, but earthquake checker. And of course I should have this plugged in so you guys can all see it. But the first thing it's asking me is, in fact, let me go to a different view, see if that'll be helpful. Stand by 1 second. I'll try to make a bigger view. There we go. All right. So first thing it's asking me is to allow the custom connector and my latitude and longitude to be used. So I'm going to hit allow and look familiar. Yeah, what's shaking? You guys want to hit it together? 3, 2, 1. It's using the latitude and longitude on my device. Pull back all the earthquakes within 1,000 miles. And if I don't know, let's go down, or 1,000 kilometers, sorry. I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and the biggest earthquake we had within 1,000 kilometers of me is a 4.4 in Lima, Montana. I'm going to click the icon there, and notice it opens up the USGS site. 4.4 northeast of Lima, Montana. So pretty powerful, right? We built a mobile app that does something somewhat meaningful in a handful of technical difficulties in an hour. That's pretty good. So, you know, is there any questions on the line there, Tim? Or did anyone even stick around? All right. Oh, you can type there if you can. But any questions? If not, what I'll do is I'll stick around for a little while and just kind of beautify the app. Oh, the suggestion, yeah, the map overlay, huh? Ooh, that would be tricky. Man, could I pull that one off while we're standing here? Probably not. That one's tricky, man. Doing the map overlay filter. I haven't used it in a long time, and so I know I would have to dig into our nested JSON and yeah, do some tricks. So won't be doing that trick, but what we will do is we'll go to, you know, just show you some kind of beautification pieces, things like adding icons and what have you. So, you know, we need a good icon here. We'll go to Google real quick, and they have a nice feature when you do an image search where they'll show you images or icons that are available for reuse. So we'll just simply go with an earthquake icon, and here under tools, I'm sorry, images, and then tools, we can say show me those that are just labeled for reuse and modification. So usage rights labeled for reuse, and this is our buddy right here. So we'll add this icon to our app, but I'm going to do it in maybe a unique way that you haven't seen before. We'll add a URL. Because we built a web app, it's hosted in the cloud, it can actually go out and grab resources and assets like this. So we're going to click use this file. Here's the URL for this SVG. And we'll just quickly come in here and go insert an image. All right, and then we'll set the image property to quote that, and bingo, pretty sweet. You know, the other just kind of cool thing to always do if you can is stick a salutation in here. So hello, and we'll use user dot display name, full name, sorry. You know, that's always kind of nice. Give it the personal touch. You can also do like an and now type thing to let them know what time it is. All right. And we'll just stick that in there. Boom. Okay. So the again, the challenge to any Seattle PowerAppers that are on, or anyone else, is how would you make this hard-coded API call a little more dynamic? You know, how could you give the user the ability to input their own radius? How could you give them the ability to change the start and end time? You know, pretty straightforward stuff, but it's fun to kind of challenge yourself there. So, all right, without further ado, thanks for tuning in. It's been a live coding session. Take care.